There's something strange about the way certain sentences can cling to your bones. Not just echo in your ears, but burrow in deep and hum there like a tuning fork. Be a man and stop complaining. She said it with a scoff, like the words were nothing, like she hadn't just poured gasoline on something already on fire. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to. It was 12:47 a.m. when she said it, barefoot in the kitchen, scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even there. I had just told her I felt like we were growing apart, that lately it seemed like she barely looked at me, that the jokes were always at my expense now, even in front of friends. I told her it hurt, that I missed us, and that's when she said it, without looking up. Be a man and stop complaining. I think something in me wilted right then, quietly. No big collapse, just a slow folding inward. We'd been married 6 years. Not perfect ones, sure, but real ones. The kind with burnt dinners and mismatched socks, with slow dance mornings and Sunday coffee rituals. I remember the first time I saw her cry in front of me, some indie film on Netflix with a dying dog, I think, and she leaned into my chest like I was the only safe place in the world. That memory used to make me smile. Lately, it just made me ache. Because she didn't lean into me anymore. She leaned away. It started subtly. Fewer I love yous. More rolled eyes when I forgot to take the trash out. A shift in tone. The way she started calling me man-child under her breath, like it was cute. The way she laughed with her friends about my sensitive side. It used to be something she said she loved. My openness. My emotional honesty. You make it okay for me to feel, she used to whisper when we lay in bed. Now, it felt like everything I was had become inconvenient. I think I held on too long to who she used to be. Or maybe who I hoped she'd be again. But I wasn't blind. I saw the way she lit up when her phone pinged after midnight. I saw the extra 30 minutes of makeup for girls' night. The way she'd suddenly guard her phone like it was nuclear launch codes. I knew something was off. But I kept telling myself, it's just a phase. Marriage is work. Ride the wave. But the wave was starting to drown me. That night, after her comment, I just stood there, in the kitchen, holding my coffee like it was an anchor. I looked at her and didn't recognize her. Not really. She looked so small in her oversized hoodie, hair in a bun, bathed in the pale light of the fridge. But she felt like a stranger. Someone who had learned my weaknesses and grown bored of them. I didn't sleep much. Just stared at the ceiling, replaying every time I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. Every time I'd said, it's fine, when it wasn't. Every joke at my expense. Every lonely dinner I cooked for myself when she was out networking. Every night I listened to the shower running at 2 a.m., wondering why she was crying in there and not with me. And maybe I'm foolish, but part of me still believed, hoped, that if I just tried harder, said the right thing, she'd remember. She'd come back. The woman who used to sing old Mariah Carey songs in the car and hold my hand in the cereal aisle. But the truth was, she'd been gone a long time. I was just the last to admit it. So the next morning, I made eggs like I always did. She barely mumbled a thanks. I cleaned up, took the trash out, kissed her on the head. She flinched, like the contact annoyed her. And that was it. That was when I decided. No grand speech. No ultimatums. Just a quiet switch inside me. I started packing that night. I moved slowly, methodically, drawer by drawer. I didn't want noise. I didn't want drama. I folded shirts like I was closing a chapter. Jeans. Socks. That hoodie she used to steal. I left it behind. She slept the whole time. Curled in bed with one leg kicked out from under the sheets, phone resting on her chest. Probably dreaming of someone else. Or nothing at all. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just zipped up the bag and stood there for a long moment. Looking at her. Remembering. And then I set the keys on the kitchen table, next to the mug I used every morning, and walked out. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. I drove through the night. No music. No destination. Just the hum of the tires and the dull ache in my chest. It's funny how silence can feel so loud when it's carrying the weight of everything you couldn't say. I stopped at a rest station somewhere past the state line. Sat there in the dark with a stale cup of coffee and watched truckers shuffle in and out like ghosts in neon vests. One of them looked at me, just for a second, and gave a small nod. A tired kind of knowing. Maybe he'd packed a bag once too. The motel I found had paper-thin walls and a rattling AC unit, but it had a lock and a bed, and that was enough. I didn't sleep much. Kept hearing her voice in my head. Not the cruel one from the kitchen. The other one. The one that used to whisper, "I missed you," when I came home late from work. The one that said forever, with her fingers intertwined in mine under the stars on our honeymoon. I don't think I realized how lonely I'd been until I finally stepped outside of it. That kind of slow isolation, the kind that builds inch by inch, apology by apology, it doesn't hit you all at once. It numbs you until you forget what warm even feels like. By the third day, I was in a small coastal town I'd visited once as a kid. There was a diner there with the same cracked vinyl booths, the same smell of burnt toast and sea breeze. I ordered eggs and toast and watched the waves roll in like they had somewhere to be. It was quiet, unremarkable, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I turned my phone on that afternoon. 17 missed calls. Her name lit up again almost immediately. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. "Where are you? Is this some kind of joke? You're acting like a child." That last one almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so on brand. Even in my absence, she couldn't bring herself to ask if I was okay. Just defaulted to scolding. Control. Power. I didn't reply. A few days later, the tone changed. "Can we talk?" I didn't mean it. "You know I love you, right?" But I'd finally learned something she never thought I would. That love without respect is just emotional blackmail in prettier packaging. And I was done trading pieces of myself for breadcrumbs. I rented a small one-bedroom above a bookstore. The landlord was a quiet, older woman who didn't ask questions when I paid 3 months in advance. I told her I was a writer. She smiled like she'd heard that before. The first week, I did nothing but sleep, read, walk. I didn't try to rebuild. I just tried to be. Let the stillness unspool all the knots I'd been tying myself into for years. Every once in a while, I'd think about the night I left. I'd picture her waking up to the closet half empty, the keys on the table, the silence humming through the apartment like a song she didn't know the words to. I wondered if she'd cried. If she'd even noticed the way I folded the throw blanket she'd always left crumpled on the couch. Part of me hoped she did, not out of spite, but because it would mean she still had the capacity to feel something real. It was around the second week that I got a message from her sister. "Just so you know, she's telling people you abandoned her, that you couldn't handle being married to a strong woman." I stared at the screen for a long time before turning it off again. Of course she was. Because in her story, she had to be the victim. It couldn't just be that I'd finally hit my limit, that I got tired of being the punchline, that I didn't want to die slowly under the weight of someone else's disappointment anymore. I didn't respond to her sister either. Instead, I walked down to the water, sat on a bench with a thermos of coffee, and watched a young couple throw bread to the seagulls. They were laughing, arms around each other like the world didn't scare them yet. And I realized something then. I hadn't left to punish her. I left to remember myself. And that was the first time in years I felt like I was finally starting to come home. It was a Sunday morning when she showed up. I was folding laundry on the small balcony that overlooked the bookstore's garden when I heard the knock. Not a frantic one, just 2 soft raps, like someone unsure if they were allowed to be there. When I opened the door, there she was, winded from the stairs, hair tied back, no makeup. For a split second, she looked like the woman I married. Not the polished, dismissive version she'd grown into. Just a woman standing in front of someone she used to know. "Hey," she said. Her voice was cautious. "Hey." She looked past me, into the apartment. "So this is where you've been hiding." I didn't answer. I stepped aside, offered nothing more than space, and she walked in like she wasn't sure what to do with her hands. "It's nice," she said. "Quiet." I nodded. "That's the point." She turned to me, eyes glassy. "Why didn't you just tell me you were leaving?" I leaned against the doorframe. "You told me to be a man and stop complaining. So I did." She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough to know it hit somewhere it was supposed to. "I didn't mean it like that," she started. "But you did," I cut in gently. "And even if you didn't, it wasn't the first time. It was just the one I finally heard." She sat on the edge of the couch, eyes scanning the room like it might explain something. "I didn't know you were that unhappy." "That's because you stopped looking," I said. "I was right there, every day, trying to keep the pieces from falling apart. But you stopped meeting me halfway." She looked down. "You never said." "I said it 100 ways," I replied. "You just didn't want to hear it because it didn't fit the version of me you liked best. The quiet one. The provider. The joke. You wanted a man who wouldn't complain while he slowly vanished." Silence stretched between us. "Heavy. Necessary," she finally whispered. "I thought you'd come back." I shook my head. That's the thing. I didn't leave so you'd chase me. I left because I stopped chasing you. She closed her eyes, and for a second, I saw regret settle on her face like dust. I didn't realize how far apart we'd gotten. You didn't want to, I said, because then you'd have to see what you did with the closeness we had. She stood slowly, her hands trembling. I don't know how to fix it. I gave her a long look. Not angry, not bitter, just tired. I'm not asking you to. She stepped forward like she wanted to hug me, but stopped herself. So this is really it. I nodded once. I left the keys on the table. That was the goodbye. She blinked fast. And now what? Now, I said, opening the door behind her. I keep choosing peace. She walked past me, her steps slower than when she came in. At the threshold, she turned around. Do you hate me? I thought about that. Then I said, no, but I don't love the version of me I had to become to stay with you. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She just nodded, stepped into the hallway, and walked away. I closed the door, locked it. Then I exhaled. There's no moment when healing begins with fireworks or fanfare. It's quiet, like folding the last shirt, like watching someone leave and not needing them to look back. She thought I'd beg. Instead, I chose myself. And that, I think, is what being a man really means.